that are here. We welcome y'all being here. I don't see, maybe I'm overlooking, but we certainly appreciate all you citizens being here this morning. We've got a sort of a full schedule, a lot of things to discuss, and I would like to remind you, if you'll silence your phones, we certainly would appreciate it. They have a mind of their own. If it does ring, if you go out in the corridor and answer it. I do see Dwayne back there now. I overlooked him. And is anybody else here with media other than Grice Connect? Okay, thank you for being here. We're going to move into our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Vice Chairman Kurt Deal to lead us in that, please.
I'm going to start my prayer a little different this morning. The Lord just put it on my heart to start my prayer with the Lord's Prayer. I think everybody knows it, but I'm just want to begin that prayer and just pray silently, if you will. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Lord, I pray that you'll hear our prayers this morning. Lord, I thank you for this time that we can meet and serve and do the will of the county. Lord, I pray that it be your will. Lord, I thank you for all the men and women who serve to protect us and allow us to have meetings like this. And Lord, I pray all this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ, amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Deal. I will now ask Ms. Mitzi White if she'll call the roll of commissioners.
I, Venus Mitzi White, present as Clerk of the Board of Commissioners of Bulloch County, hereby call the roll for those on the governing body. All those present shall answer by saying aye. Chairman Roy Thompson.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Kurt Deal.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray Mosley.
Aye.
Commissioner Anthony Simmons.
Aye.
Commissioner Jackie Stringer.
Aye.
Commissioner Timmy Rushing.
Aye.
Commissioner Toby Connor.
Aye.
I determine that we have all members of the Board of Commissioners present. Therefore, we have a quorum to conduct business for the good of the citizens of Bulloch County. I now yield the floor back to the chairman.
Thank you. Next will be a presentation, and our Planning and Development Director, James Pope, will make a presentation about our long-range transportation plan update.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for giving us this opportunity this morning to update you on the Statesboro Bulloch County Long Range Transportation Plan. I've invited our planning lead for the consultant firm Goodwin Mills Kaywood, which Mr. Glenn Coyne can run through the presentation and give you a true update on this process that's been going on for roughly 6 months or so. And we're getting some pretty good feedback from the public, and I think we're about halfway. Of course, I'll let Glenn get into the timeline, but the planning process is coming along pretty well, and we have a public meeting coming up. So we just want to get here today and give you an update and get the word out. So this is Glenn Coyne with Goodwin Mills Kaywood.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks again for having me here. Glenn Coyne with Goodwin Mills Kaywood. And our team is helping out both the city and the county with the update to the long-range transportation plan. So we're about halfway through, so I thought it would be a good time to come forward and let you know what it's about and what we've been hearing and where we're headed from this point. So again, this is the looking out to 2045, so it's about a 20-year horizon. Last time you all did this was back in 2009, so it's time with all the growth for an update. And a couple of ways we just wanted to highlight what we're doing. We're taking a look at what you have out there now, what the needs are, And then we're doing something called a travel demand model, which I'll talk about more in just a minute. But really, this is looking not just at roads and cars and trucks, it's looking at all kinds of transportation. So how people walk, bike, if there's transit, all kinds of different transportation is included in this. And we're trying to look at how that all works together, not only now, but in the future. And then really, it's important, and we heard from both y'all and the public, that it's important to maintain the character of Statesboro and Bulloch County so we don't completely change the entire character of the community. What we're trying to do, again, is put together a plan that y'all can use, something that can be implemented. We're not trying to do just a fancy study. We're going to come up with actual projects that could be implemented. We're going to try to identify where the funding is going to come from for those projects. And really not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're going to take a look at the work you've already done. Some great planning's already happened, and incorporate that into this project. Public involvement is a key to this. We're very interested in hearing what the public has to say. I'll talk about that in just a second. And as I already mentioned, the key here is, can we build it, can we pay for it, and can we implement all of these projects that we'd like to do? As we do this, there's 5 general topics, and this is kind of how we've organized, how we've talked with the public about it. We try to improve and take care of any congestion that's happening, get connectivity. Where folks want to go? How do they get there? And is there a better route that might be considered to connect up different parts of the county? There's safety, so looking at lighting, crossings, signals, roadway conditions out in the county. Are there areas that need to be paved? Are there projects that need to be construction improvement, roadway conditions? And then we get into the 2 non-motorized types of improvements. That's sidewalks, bike lanes, and trails, and then transit. So those are the 5 major areas that we've been looking at for transportation. Again, James mentioned the schedule just briefly. We're about halfway through, collecting a lot of data, pulling together a lot of information, and we're getting ready to get to that point of starting to make some recommendations and put goals and objectives together. So I won't dwell too long on that, but we will, again, keep you all posted as we get closer to a draft plan in the fall. So far, again, we mentioned public involvement and how important that is to us. We've had 2 public workshops already, and we have another one scheduled coming up on March 12th. And I'll give some information about that at the end. We did an online community survey. It was open for about 4 or 5 weeks. We got 1,000 responses, which we think is pretty good. We got a lot of responses from different age groups, people who live throughout the county. We asked them where they lived. So we feel like we have a very good representation of a lot of folks who participated in that online survey. We have been updating a website to keep people posted who can't come to our meetings. And we have a really good technical advisory committee made up of staff of the city and the county. And we've met with them twice, and are scheduled to meet with them very soon again for the 3rd time. Again, we're giving updates to you and to the mayor and city council. We talked to them at the beginning, the city council. We're going to talk to them again next month to give them a very similar update as to what y'all are hearing today. Very briefly, the things that we've heard from the survey should not surprise you. In the county, folks were very interested in better road conditions, less traffic congestion, and better street operations, so improving some of the signals and the lighting. In the city, it was some of the similar issues, but people brought up more bus stops and more sidewalks a little more frequently in the city than they did out in the county. But again, it's really just kind of starting to prioritize what types of projects people want to see. And so again, this is just one slide, but we have a full report of all of the information that we heard from the public. And we can certainly provide that to you as an interim kind of deliverable so you can take a look at that. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what is on the top of mind of most of the people that we've been talking to so far. I talked about a travel demand model. This is something that we have a very good subcontractor helping us with. They're called Modern Mobility, and they do all of the travel demand modeling for Georgia Department of Transportation. They do this throughout the whole state. They are the experts. I am not, but I'm going to try to explain what it's all about. It takes a look at how your travel patterns are happening out in the county right now. And then what they try to do is look in the future and come up with several different scenarios. One is, what happens if we don't build anything? What happens if you just continue to grow, the roads that are out there now, the intersections the way they are, what does that traffic look like? And they will do a calculation and show what that looks like on the map. Then they will do a second one where they say, okay, well, let's add in those projects that we already know about. They're already funded. They're already on the ground. We call that existing and committed. What if we build those? And then we show what that scenario looks like. And hopefully that's a lot better than the do nothing. And then we do a full, what if we could build everything that we could imagine as a what if? And what would that look like? And what would that take financially to do? And so within those three analyses, they can figure out a recommendation of what you can afford, what DOT can help you with, and how we go forward with recommendations. So that's really, there's a lot more to it than that, but that's just a quick summary, layman's terms of what that travel demand model does. Again, this talks to the region, it talks to the state, it's all interconnected, this travel demand model. So what happens on I-16, we fold it into our model. What happens throughout all over the state and how it impacts Bulloch County and Statesboro, we feed that into the model. So it's really interesting. Again, we started a list of projects. We call this the universe of projects. This came from our technical advisory committee. So we have a list for the county, we have lists for the city. We've started to prioritize those lists. And so again, I know you can't see this, but I just wanted to show an example that we have quite a number of projects we've identified as potential. So this is one that just comes under that operational category, and then just wanted to give you a flavor that we also have each of those 5 categories broken out, and this is the one for bicycle and pedestrian. So once again, we have all of this detail, but I'm really just trying to give you the headlines of what we've been putting together. With those projects, we've mapped them, so we can start to see where throughout the county and in the city these projects are proposed. And you can see on the map, and one of the themes that we've really been working on is that growth really trending to that southeast corner of Bulloch County. One of our strategies is going to be, which corridors are we going to focus on? And we were quickly becoming aware that 67, 46, and I-16 are going to be the main corridors that are really going to face challenges over the next 20 years. 301 and US 80 are also important, and there's lots of other arterials and other types of roads too, but again, how these corridors develop, how they're improved are going to be critical to the future for this plan. There's a really good relationship between future land use, growth, and transportation. We're trying to take that into account. James and his group are updating the comprehensive plan as well at the same time. And so we're trying to work with that process and figure out where are these growth areas. I just mentioned the southeast, which we're spending a little extra time on. And where's water, sewer, road, where are those available in the future? That helps us predict the growth. And then one of the important things here that you're all aware of is you have natural growth. Bulloch County, Statesboro has been growing really steadily over the last 20 years. But all of a sudden now, there's these 2 major inputs that have happened just outside of your boundaries, which are causing us to take a real careful look at what's happening with water and sewer, with growth, with traffic that's brought on by Hyundai and the Georgia Port Authority expansion. So where do we go from here? As a wrap up, as I mentioned, we're getting to the point where our goals and objectives are becoming pretty clear. What in those 5 categories we want to address. We've begun some initial outputs to that travel demand model I talked about. We're starting to see some really interesting data. And again, we're coordinating with the comp plan update. And in closing, I just want to make sure everyone's aware that we have a meeting coming up on March 12th. It's from 5 to 7 in the evening at the First United Methodist Church here downtown. And that will be an open house meeting. So if you can't get there at 5, we'll welcome you whatever time you get there, and we'll have a few exercises for folks to participate in to get some feedback. So, with that, again, we just want to thank you for your support on this, and the public as well, and the staff of both the city and the county for working with us. And look forward to getting this finished and giving you a good product. So if there's anything I can answer, I'm happy to, but James knows how to get in touch with us if you need anything after this meeting, and stand ready to help you.
Does any commissioners have any questions or county manager at present time?
I don't have any questions, just a comment, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I think there are three of you commissioners who were here when we did the last transportation plan in 2009. And while it was very robust, I would argue that what GMC is doing presently is even more robust, because although we had a good product in 2009, we were sort of left with the cafeteria plan of choosing the projects that we wanted. And I think the big byproduct of this plan update is that we've asked GMC to, using transportation talk, do a constrained plan and pick real projects that we can prioritize and hopefully fund. And that's where constrained comes in. We'll obviously have to find money, but I see a lot of positives in where we've come thus far with GMC, and I think the final product will be very, very good for the community. And thank you, Mr. Coyne.
Thank you.
Certainly, thank you for your comments,
Appreciate it.
and I'm sure we'll be talking again.
Great. Thank you again.
Yes, sir, thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the general agenda. And before I entertain a motion to approve the general agenda, do we have any other discussion of modifications desired by the county manager or the board? Hearing none, then I'll accept a motion to approve the general agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a favor, second. All those, any questions? Then hearing none, all those in favor of approving the general agenda, show of hands, unanimous decision. I will read our items on the consent agenda. Approve the minutes from the January 30th, 2024 Board of Commissioners meeting. Approve the minutes from the February the 6th, 2024 Board of Commissioners meeting. Approve a contract for Splash in the Borough summer marketing media purchases through Davis Marketing Company in the amount of $23,346. Approve the acceptance of a bid for spring 2024 baseball, softball equipment and uniforms in the amount of $52,752.24. Approve the purchase of Motorola APX 6000 portable radios from Motorola Solutions in the amount of $50,249.99. Approve a contract for the main band for the Firecracker Fest celebration to be held on June 29, 2024 in the amount of $5,500. Approve a bid and contract with Mill Creek Construction Company for construction and repairs to the Portal Fire EMS parking lot in the amount of $109,891.50 to be funded by T-Splost. Approve a contract with Keck and Wood in the amount of $16,750 to perform an updated traffic study of the road network near the site of the proposed SEB High School to be funded by T-Splost, with the Board of Education funding 50% of the cost. Number 9 is approve the appointment of Marcia Twiggs to the Coastal Georgia Regional Development Center Aging Services Advisory Council for a 3-year term. 10, approve the appointment of Dennis A. Brown to the Coastal Area District Development Authority for a 2-year period. Approve the reappointment of Dr. Angela Gergis to the Bulloch Board of Health for a 6-year term. We can move any of these items to new business, or we can vote on them collectively as I've presented them. And so I will put that in the hand of the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote on these collectively as you just read.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, show of hands. Unanimous approval. Thank you very much. Under old business, County Engineer Brad Deal, this is a discussion of a traffic study of Langston Chapel Road at Lanier Drive.
Good morning, Brad Deal, County Engineer. And, all right, we've got a short presentation I put up just to provide some visual aids for this. But as you probably recall, we had a request from citizens to study the intersection of Langston Chapel Road and Lanier Drive, mainly with the expectation to look at possibly making it an all-way stop for the time being. I think what was driving the complaints, if you go to the second slide. Oh, my bad. I believe what was driving the complaints from the citizens was the traffic delay on Lanier Drive, which at certain times of the day, they were having some pretty long lines of traffic at the stop sign that's on Lanier Drive. And in addition to that, Georgia Southern is constructing a new convocation center on Lanier Drive at the bypass, which I think is due to be open in next year, in the fall of next year, or I should say fall of this year. So we expect that to add a good bit of traffic to Lanier Drive as well. In addition to that, there's also the construction of a roundabout at Harville Road and Langston Chapel that's in progress right now. And there's going to be a traffic detour put in, we expect during the summer, which would last about 90 days. Lanier Drive will be used, I think, as the detour route for a lot of the traffic that would normally go through that intersection. So that's another impact to the area that's going on right now. And then in addition to that, just some background information, the county is planning to improve the intersection of Langston Chapel at Lanier with some more permanent improvements, such as a roundabout, is what we have planned there. But right now, we're also trying to combine that with potentially some other improvements on Lanier Drive, which may take some time to work out as we work out some things with GDOT and Georgia Southern. So here's I know you all know where this intersection is, but it's just an overview of the intersection. So if you're looking at the screen, Langston Chapel Road is the road going east and west across the screen. And Lanier Drive is the road going north and south with a little bit of a curve in it. The sight distance is good at the intersection. You can see well in both directions from the stop sign on Lanier Drive. All three legs of the intersection have approximately 8,000 vehicles per day, which is important because when you look at the potentially making it an all-way stop, you want the traffic volumes to be relatively equal on all the legs. It works a lot better when it's in that situation, and that is what we have here. We also had approximately 49 traffic crashes over a 7-year period based on the information that we got on traffic crashes. Lanier Drive currently has a level of service of E in the afternoon peak hour, which is not good. It's similar to your grades in school. So A is the best, F is the worst, and so during the afternoon time period, you're having a lot of traffic stacking up on Lanier Drive at the stop sign. And that was actually this. I forgot to change the slide, but anyway. Here's a picture from yesterday, actually. And Jacob Crowley took this picture yesterday. And I think as he was trying to take the picture, he had to keep backing up. He was trying to get a picture from the back of the line of traffic. And so this is about, I think where he took the picture is about 800 feet from the stop sign. So you have approximately 20, 25 vehicles lined up at the stop sign. And this was yesterday afternoon. So in the study, we looked at two different scenarios. The first one was to just leave the intersection as it is until we make the more permanent changes that we have planned later on. The positive to that would be, you wouldn't impact Langston Chapel Road at all. It would, continue to function well. You don't have any stop signs on Langston Chapel, so the traffic moves through on that road very quickly. The negative to that is that Lanier Drive is going to continue to get worse, especially with the Convocation Center, and then also the other construction going on at the other roundabout. It's probably going to make the level of service an F because it's already close to an F now, which may increase the risk taking by the drivers as they try to pull out into traffic on Langston Chapel. That's what tends to happen when you have those long lines of traffic that, such as was in the picture on that previous slide. So the second scenario that we looked at was to convert the intersection to an all-way stop. The positive to that is that it would obviously decrease the delay on Lanier Drive. It would go to a level of service C according to the traffic software we have, where we put all the traffic counts in and ran the projections. So another positive would be that it would decrease the traffic crashes. Most studies that have been done indicate anywhere from 40 to 50% of the accidents would be decreased by going to an all-way stop. Another positive would be that for the future construction project that we have planned, this would also be beneficial in that you would be stopping the traffic at a stop sign on Langston Chapel. I think that would help us as we get into construction within the next couple of years on the roundabout. Another positive would be it would help traffic to move when the detour is put in place for the Harville Road intersection. Again, I think Lanier Drive is going to be used as a detour route, and so you're going to have an increase on Lanier Drive. Some of the traffic coming from 67 will not be able to get through during the detour, so some of that traffic is going to be removed, but a lot of it's going to be diverted to Lanier Drive, I feel, during the 90-day detour. The negative, obviously, with this scenario is that you are going to increase some delay on Langston Chapel Road, which right now there's no delay on Langston Chapel Road. So what you're essentially doing is taking some of that delay all the delay that's on Lanier Drive and just distributing it equally among the three legs is basically what this would do. But the intersection would still operate at a level of service C, which is not bad. And that's basically you're going to see during the busier times of the day, you're going to have about 6 or 7 cars at the stop sign on Langston Chapel if it's put in, which would take about 20 seconds to move through the intersection. That's roughly what you would be seeing during the busy times of the day. And Lanier Drive would operate a lot better. It would go from about a 45-second delay to a 20-second delay during the afternoon peak time period. So the recommendations that I'm making from the study is to convert the intersection to an all-way stop control. We would accomplish that by installing stop signs, stop ahead signs with flags, stop bars, rumble strips. We would also use the message boards that we have for a time period of a couple weeks to alert drivers of the change. And so we have some flexibility in making the decision. You know, there's nothing that says we have to do this, but I'll go to this next slide. I just feel that the positives of making the change would outweigh the negatives for the all-way stop control, and that's sort of how I landed on that recommendation. But and if the study has showed that Langston Chapel Road was going to experience severe delay by making this change, I would not make that recommendation. I would say, you know, it wouldn't be worthwhile. We'll just wait until we make more permanent improvements, but I don't see that being the case. I don't think the delay is going to be severe. So, and the cost of making this change is relatively low. We can do this for $5,000, and you know, there's not many intersection improvements you can do for $5,000. So that's why I say it's a relatively low cost. And again, I think there's just positive benefits for doing this, you know, for the potential construction project we have coming up at the intersection. It just helps us control the traffic. And if the Convocation Center, you know, moves a little faster than our other intersection improvements, this will still allow for moving the traffic through on Lanier Drive. In the meantime, it gives us an interim measure that would work, you know, if we see an increase in traffic. And so I use the MUTCD, which is the manual that GDOT uses and the county uses and everybody uses for striping and signage, and it's basically kind of a guidebook. And so According to the study, the intersection did meet 2 warrants that the MUTCD has for an always stop control. So it doesn't mean you have to make it an always stop. It just is kind of a guideline to use to help you decide on what to do. And so I try not to get overly technical, but if you have any questions on any of that, please let me know.
Mr. Chairman, may the manager have the floor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think, Mr. Deal, it's probably worthwhile to alert the commissioners as well, not only about Lanier Drive, but a road project related to Okeechee Tech. And I believe if the amended state budget and the budget for '25 is effectively in place, hopefully we'll be getting some additional LMIG funds. But going back to Lanier and Langston Chapel, do I recall correctly that somewhere in our CIP we had an intersection improvement project, either a signal or a roundabout, and this was before the Convocation Center really came alive? Is that correct?
That's correct. And also Old Register Road as well. So
Okay.
both of those intersections.
And do you happen to recall when the Langston Lanier intersection was programmed?
We have money budgeted now for design for it. And so we're kind of working through, I guess, whatever the final direction is going to be there, but we do have money for design now.
Okay. Well, hopefully, if the extra LMIG money comes in, and my understanding is what the governor proposed along with the GDOT commissioner is this supplemental LMIG would have no match, which would be good. So, but we'll have to see how much we get and how far that it goes. But more importantly, at least as a stopgap measure, I would strongly recommend that we go ahead with this improvement for the all-way stop and continue working on really, I guess not a corridor, but an important road that's going to lead to a big traffic generator with the Convocation Center and as South Campus grows.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak? You know, I know there's no perfect way to control traffic, but I can attest that the four-way stop, whether it be just four-way stop signs, like we have down near the Brooklet School now, Brooklet's, and or the flashing signs, four-way stop signs. And I know it slows people down just a little bit, but I tell you what, we're not having the accidents where we have these that we used to have. And unless you can share with me that there's more, but I've heard of maybe one down in Brooklet, a little minor fender bender, and they were having accidents down there all the time. And after.
Well, I just wanted to ask one question. Is that segment of Langston Chapel, do you know what the speed limit is? Because I know in some segments, it's as high as 55.
That section is 45, and I failed to mention that earlier, but the traffic is going a lot faster than 45. We did collect some data on that as well, and most of it's going about 55, even though the speed limit is 45. So that was part of the concern as well, as the speed of that traffic that's going through there. And it makes it more difficult for the cars to turn left from Lanier Drive onto that road because of how fast they're coming at them as well. So.
Yeah, and while I don't believe, because of the level of expense, that the commissioners would need to vote to take action unless they wanted to, if the consensus is go forth, when would you like to start?
We would start working on making arrangements for the signs and the striping right away, and that way we could have it in place before the detour from Harville Road. That would be the plan.
Okay, but certainly before the GSU winter semester is out?
That's right.
Yeah, well, good. We'll need to get some advance notice out, and given the nature of the residential areas and the residents, maybe on the message boards, we should put up a message that says DUI checkpoint ahead, and that'll caution them to slow down.
Right. And I do think, the chairman brought up Brooklet, Denmark, and Rushing Road. Based on everything I've seen, this intersection would actually operate a little better in terms of traffic backup because partly with it being a three-leg intersection, the traffic's going to move through a little quicker than it does at that one. And the other issue at the Brooklet, Denmark, Rushing Road intersection is that all the traffic is coming at one time, basically. Here you have Georgia Southern, which is on a different schedule than Langston Chapel Elementary and Middle School down the road. So the traffic is a little more distributed instead of just coming all at once to that location. So I think it would actually even work better than that one. But you also have the benefit of reducing the traffic accidents as well, like you mentioned. So.
Right. So any commissioners have any comments now? Anyone have a problem with moving forward? Okay, then I would say move forward with it and let's get it done.
Sir.
Now we go into new business and Judge Michael Muldrew will come up and make a presentation.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm, of course, Judge Michael Muldrew, and I appreciate you letting me speak today. And I'd like to start off with thanking you for all you do for the county and for the court system. It does not go unnoticed, and we appreciate that. This is the time of year when we have to apply for the Accountability Court grant. As you know, that includes mental health court and drug court, and I'm in charge of that for the circuit. Bulloch, Screven, Jenkins, and Effingham County. I provided each of you a copy of the state annual report. And first of all, I'd like you to look on page 11, excuse me, page 11, and we're recognized, they'll get you judicial circuit, drug court is recognized specifically in the annual report. It's called the Operating Grant Spotlight, and we're commended for saving the taxpayer so much money by combining both of our accountability court and is made up of drug court and mental health court. So we're saving taxpayers a lot of money doing that, and it's a recommendation to other counties and courts throughout the state to look into doing that also. The main reason I wanted to speak with you, and I've talked to Chairman Thompson before, but when we started this some 7 years ago, the county match was 10%, cash match was 10%. A couple of years ago, it went up to 12%. Well, now they're requiring it to be 15%. If you look at, there's several loose pieces of paper in your program here. And our grant request for drug court is $364,000, and for accountability court, $205,000 for this coming fiscal year. But we've never gotten anywhere close to that amount from the state. That's more of a wish list. As you can see, last year we requested 304 and received 215 for drug court, and we requested 192 and received 149 for mental health court. So although the county match may be 30,000 and 17 for the two courts, it will actually be much less, probably 60-70% of that. We are able to get a federal grant that Mr. Couch has helped us with that fills in the gap with a lot of these, and that has no cash match, so that saves the county a lot of money. Right now, we're running about 60 participants over the 4 counties. Half of that or a little more are from Bulloch County, so you can see Bulloch County is receiving more than their fair share of clients with regards to cost. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions from the commissioners?
Kind of threw a lot at you in a short time period, but I got a courtroom full of people that have been there since 9 o'clock, so I got.
I'll make this very quick. Thank you for what you do and your team. You know, I don't know if any of y'all out there have ever had children or relatives in drug court or never have been. But I've had the pleasure of speaking to those that were there at the time. And you have a lot that passes walks on through and then enters life again. And, if it wasn't for drug court, there'd be a lot more people locked up at present time. And I appreciate the job that you do.
Well,
So,
thank you. Ms. McLean, she's got that flu bug that's going around. Normally, she would have been here today, but she's
Right.
sick with that. Yeah, we have a 60% success rate, which if anybody knows anything about drug treatment programs, 10, 15, 20 is a good mark, but we're doing a lot better than that. I have to terminate probably 40% of the people that come through the program for failing to succeed. But we're still able to help a lot of people over the last 7 years.
well, if we kept you here another 45 minutes, everybody in the courtroom would be mad then.
Yeah,
wouldn't they?
well, fortunately, they're not going to start without me, so never late when you're the judge. But thank you again, and we appreciate y'all's concern and all you've done for the citizens of Bulloch County.
Commissioners, I need a motion to
Thank you.
approve the acceptance of the fiscal year 25 mental health and drug court grant awards.
So moved. Second.
Questions? All those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous approval. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Next, we have County Engineer Brad Dilligan's discussion and/or action regarding a letter of support with GDOT's recommendation of converting the State Route 46 at Neville's Denmark Road intersection into an always stop sign. It's always stop.
All right, so it's me again, Brad Deal, County Engineer. This is a very, almost similar situation to what we were just talking about, but it is different in that this is a state route, State Route 46 at Neville's Denmark Road. The county has requested, I think more than once, for GDOT to study the intersection. And the issues here, as opposed to Lanier Drive that we were just talking about, is more related to the safety and the traffic accidents that they've had at this location. You don't really have any traffic backups at this intersection, but you do have, for some reason, more accidents than you would expect. Each leg of the intersection has about 2,000 cars a day on it, so it's a lot less traffic volume than you have at Lanier and Langston Chapel, but the sight distance is good. If you're stopped at the stop sign, you can see in both directions for a good distance. But for some reason, again, we've had a high number of accidents at the location. And just to, I guess, remind you all, if anybody has forgotten or hadn't been through there in a while, there are stop signs on Neville's Denmark Road at State Route 46. And State Route 46 is free-flowing so that you don't have stop signs. And the speed limit is 55 miles an hour there, although if you've been out there, most people are probably going about 70. And that's where a lot of the issue comes in, is the speed of the traffic at this location. We had, during one 12-month period, we had 6 right angle crashes. Those tend to be a little more severe than other types. And again, we had approximately equal traffic on each leg of the intersection. So GDOT did a traffic study. I'm just relying on their study. This isn't one that the county did. They analyzed the intersection, looked at possibly putting a traffic signal or a roundabout or an always stop. They ended up recommending an always stop because the cost of the roundabout would be expensive for the amount of traffic that goes through there. And it did not meet the traffic signal warrants. So they came back with the recommendation of an always stop. The always stop would be installed by GDOT with no expense to the county. And so I think it would work well. In addition, so I would support GDOT's recommendation on that. And so before they move forward, they're requesting a letter of support from the county on it. And so I would recommend that we send a letter of support, and that was kind of the force behind this item on the agenda this morning. So let me know if you have any questions.
Will the chairman yield?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I didn't happen to think of this when we were discussing Lanier and Langston Chapel, but especially given the rural nature of Neville's Denmark and 46, I don't know when the accidents occur, if they're more frequent in the daytime or the nighttime, but it came to mind that intersection lighting could be a factor. So can you render, do you know if there happens to be any intersection lighting here at Neville's Denmark and 46, and likewise on Lanier and Langston Chapel.
I don't believe there's any current lighting at either intersection. And in terms of the wrecks, I don't have a breakdown on that, but I do know at 46 in Neville's Denmark, we've had a couple of recent crashes that came after the GDOT study that were in the evening time. It was dark, and so I do think it would be a beneficial thing to add to the intersection, to get some lighting in there. It would help.
Well, I would merely ask you to consider that on both of those projects. And, I think the lighting isn't street, when I say street lighting, not to be confused with the street light districts, but I think the lighting factor would be, or having lights would be beneficial at the intersections.
I would agree.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Brad, does that conclude the presentation?
Oh, yes, sir. That's all I had, unless you have
All
any
right.
questions.
And what I'm asking for now is a motion for GDOT's recommendation of converting the State Route 46 and Neville's Denmark Road intersection into an all-way stop.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Well, motion, second, discussion, none. All those in favor of the motion, show of hand. Unanimous approval. Thank you very much. Next, we have County Manager Tom Couch and Planning and Development Director James Pope for Rural Workforce Housing Initiative.
Good morning again, everybody. I just wanted to take a few minutes and discuss this program because we are getting some interest by various types of private developers. Just for a little bit of background, last year, Governor Kemp put into the state 24 budget approximately $36 million for this initiative. And I believe in his proposed budgets, both the amended budget and the budget for 25, he's trying to put more funding into it. So I wanted to take a little bit of time and discuss the parameters of the program, how it works. I'll try to be as brief as possible because I know you're all big on meeting efficiency. And I'll try to avoid, if I can operate this correctly. Okay. Try to avoid PowerPoint karaoke, though these are the topics that I'm going to go through as quickly as possible. I'm not going to get into the weeds of the program because anytime you're dealing with the Department of Community Affairs, they can get rather, obtuse with all of their rules and regulations. But the purpose of the program is really to stimulate workforce housing. And when you look at the bigger picture, while it's especially in the first two rounds of funding, a lot of the funding has gone to rural areas where they don't have the kinds of issues that we do. They may be more remote, they may be less affluent, but you can use this program for existing housing needs in addition to the kind of needs that we have where we're about to be on the precipice of very rapid growth and low unemployment, low unemployment rates. Our current unemployment rate, or the unemployment rate just in Bulloch County alone, was 2.6%, which was well below the state rate of 3.4%. So we and the other three JDA counties, Joint Development Authority, are really ground zero, although there's only three of our counties that are either eligible or conditionally eligible for the program. And one thing I want to emphasize on the fourth bullet point is the need to have a housing study, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit more later. These are some of the program parameters. They're actually two legs or two elements to this program. This one is going to dwell on infrastructure grants, which are probably going to be more predominant as we begin to get solicitations for assistance. But the parameters somewhat remain the same for the other leg or element of the program, where this money or these funds can provide very low interest financing for rural workforce housing projects. But generally speaking, the price range has to be, of the units, whether they're single family or multifamily, has to be between $125,000 and $290. They have to have at least two bedrooms in each unit, and they have to have accessible services, particularly utilities. Rental rates are defined by both the area median income and the average household income. It's sort of a blended metric that they use to determine that whatever development is being put in place actually is going toward working families and working households of certain incomes. And we all generally know, if we have owner-occupied housing, that approximately 30% of income is the bare minimum that you need to be making mortgage payments if you own your own home. And one thing I'll emphasize too, and we'll talk about it later, is that, you know, Bulloch County is going to be the primary applicant. So we have to be sure that all of the DCA strictures are followed, or we can have various penalties or even payback of funds. These are all the eligible applicants: general purpose local government. They can be cities, counties, development authorities. And they also emphasize that DCA, and one thing I didn't mention, it's One Georgia used to be a separate agency, but One Georgia funding is now managed by DCA. It comes from One Georgia or tobacco settlement funds, in addition to what the governor has put in the budgets. But they do emphasize that you have strong partnerships, either with private developers or nonprofits or community housing development organizations. Habitat's a good example of that, or it could be possibly a public housing authority or others who are involved in housing. When you get into more metro areas, organizations like Action Pact often get involved in housing. But DCA really emphasizes these types of partnerships, and I think they really want you to think through the kinds of applications and programs you're going to manage with this money. And in terms of funding requirements, the infrastructure grant, you can apply for anywhere from $250,000 to $2.5 million, but they really emphasize leverage, whether that leverage is on the private side, but more so the public side when it comes to infrastructure grants. When we reviewed the awards for the first two rounds of funding, we noticed that there was skin in the game, usually by the local governments, whether it was city, county, jointly, if it was a joint project. Of course, we've not allocated any kind of funding for this program because it's so new. Now, on the construction loan side, you can see it's $1 million maximum, and as I understand it, the rates right now are between 0 and 3%. For up to 40% of all of the development costs, or that maximum of $1 million. But if developers or nonprofits choose to do the construction loan program, they've got to kick in at least 10% of their own money, and then 50% of the rest of the money has to come through other sources, whether it's lending or other means, maybe the developers themselves. And then the underwriting does have to be done by a private lender. I think if there are nonprofits or CHDOs that are involved, DCA may consider underwriting it through. They sort of have this housing finance authority set up where they can do loans through the state. But generally speaking, it's better off working with a private lender to try to leverage that construction loan program. But it is a good alternative because the financing is phenomenally low compared to what most people are just getting on a mortgage right now. Okay, application and award procedures are pretty simple. You have to be either as a county or a city within a county applying for these funds or a special district. You have to be eligible or conditionally eligible. Bulloch, Effingham, and Bryan, I believe, are conditionally eligible. The infrastructure grant program works on a quarterly basis, and it's typically going to be January, April, July, and October when they take applications for the grants. And the loan program is going to be more on a rolling basis, take it as it comes, and it depends on funding availability because what they're actually trying to do with the construction loan leg of the program is develop, you might call it a revolving loan fund. So interest payments that are made by various awardees can be put back into this fund and used to generate additional money without having to go to the state budget. And then there's compliance issues that we would have to be aware of. State audit and grant certifications, environmental and historic preservation requirements, and no outstanding One Georgia grant issues. And I think that applies to every general purpose local government within the county. You know, if somebody else has a One Georgia grant and the county doesn't, then things have to be pretty clean with One Georgia before they either lend or grant anybody else any money. The process schedule, as you can see, can take up to 6 months. It can go faster, but the main bullet point in the process schedule I think you need to be aware of is that you've got 24 months to complete the project once the award is made. And, you know, again, we've had One Georgia grants before. This is a pretty typical requirement. You might get an extension or two if there's a legitimate, unforeseen project, but at the end of the day, they want you to tie it up 2 years from the award, so there can't be any lollygagging going on by the development party. And then you have to have readiness, too. When you look at the scoring rubric, for One Georgia, and it's the same as their equity program. You all may not know about the equity program, but there's 6 different points categories. But readiness is important. You got to get a minimum of 300 points for the whole application, where 500 is available. But the most important things is that developer information has to be robust, including some kind of marketing plan that shows that you're going to meet the requirements of the workforce housing parameters of income, targeting, and setting your prices right for your single-family or multifamily units. The project should be shovel-ready. You can't put in an application and sit on your hands for 6, 8, 9, 12 months while you're trying to get it all together. You know, the project's got to be ready to go from the point of award. And then, as I emphasized earlier, there's a need for a housing study. And according to DCA, these guidelines are fairly strict. It either has to be a housing element in your comprehensive plan, which the county currently does not have a housing element. But there is the prospect going forward, and I'll talk about it in a minute, of doing a pretty low-cost housing assessment with the other 3 JDA counties coming by way of Georgia Tech, which would largely subsidize it. And there's a few pros and cons to the program. An obvious one is that it is an opportunity to provide affordable workforce housing that's going to be needed in our community. Again, we have a very low unemployment rate. We're probably going to have frictional unemployment or maximum employment for the next 2 years unless there's a global economic crisis. But it is a way to facilitate workforce housing. And then, again, it's available to private developers and CHDOs through the public entity, which would be the county if someone asks us to apply on their behalf. And then it does assist with public infrastructure and land acquisition as well if that is necessary. Now, there are some cons. Like I said, we don't have a housing study. We don't currently have any funds budgeted for leverage. There is an administrative burden to managing the program. And then there are also the optics of providing incentives to private developers. So we carefully, thought this through over the last couple of weeks. So we think that what we have to do is ask you to consider some kind of a framework, either before we begin taking applications or as we take applications. But I think certain things need to be in place. Again, the county currently doesn't have a housing study or an assessment. Georgia Tech is, we're probably going to get a proposal from Georgia Tech through the Joint Development Authority, which comes back to each of the 4 counties. And I think we will be asked to contribute $20,000 each to the cost of the study. Now, it will be a good, robust study in addition to looking at housing and gap analysis and other things that are central to market-based housing studies. They're also going to be doing cost of services studies, fiscal impact analysis for the new population that's coming in. They've got some pretty good mathematical models they can use. So for $20,000, we would probably get a lot more value-added products than just a housing study or housing analysis. And then in lieu of no study, private developers would have to submit an assessment meeting DCA requirements. And in the review of those types of assessments, those aren't easy to do. You either have to do, a market-based housing study according to DCA requirements if, for example, you were going to apply for low-income tax credits. And, that I've seen those kinds of study products before, and they're about yay thick, very challenging to do. Similarly, you may know the city is with GIC, the GIC program. They've been in it for 2 or 3 years. And I think, and I recall that I believe the city of Statesboro has performed some housing studies and completed them in 2021 that would more than meet those requirements. So these things, can't be done by the junior varsity. You've got to be able to put together a housing assessment that DCA is going to be able to look through their lens and say, okay, this is all right. Otherwise, they're going to goose egg you on the scoring rubric. So what we would recommend, and this goes back to, these 3 legs of the chair, if our name has to be on this application, and I think you all know that we take great pride and we're very successful when we put in grant applications. I used to say back in the day, if you were a good grant writer, bat 300 like baseball and you get into the Hall of Fame. Well, Bulloch County bats 750. And we don't want to hand anything in that's going to embarrass us for the next grant application. But I think in addition to having our name on it, it should be screened by the county staff to make sure it meets DCA requirements so we're not embarrassed. We should apply a screening fee, and then there needs to be a determination of leveraging county funds, which at this time we don't have anything budgeted, and therefore I think it's risky and you don't score as high on an application with DCA or One Georgia unless you have that leverage, because all the other awards had some form of significant leverage. Now, it is possible, if this program continues to proliferate, that the county could have multiple grants to manage. And One Georgia isn't that dramatically different than a CDBG grant or another grant. Maybe the good news is that it's not quite as cumbersome as a federal grant, but we're going to have to review invoices. We're going to, when we make checks out, we got to do all the internal controls. We got to make all of the various copies and then send it to DCA. And if it's an infrastructure grant, usually what's going to happen, things will start out a little slow and you're not getting a lot of checks for a lot of money, but then come the big ones, the $200,000 draws and the $300,000 draws. And this is a reimbursable grant, So when you think about $2.5 million, that's money that we lose interest income on when we're having to push out and wait for reimbursement. And Cindy may recall, what's a typical DCA turnaround on a reimbursement? 30 days? Yeah. So, that's 30 days, and it may be 30 overlapping days with every submission that we have. And then there's quarterly reports and closeout reports to do. So what we would also recommend, in addition to a screening fee, is to use a rate of post-award administration similar to that with CDBG, which is now 6% of the grant award. So just looking forward, this is kind of a review of the things I think we have to look at and consider, and particularly you as commissioners before you put your name on a grant application. Housing assessment is needed. Whether a private developer can bring an adequate housing assessment until a Georgia Tech study is done, we would have to see through screening. Leverage funding. You'd have to make a decision, are we going to use any county funds to leverage, or are we going to completely rely on what the private developer or the CHDO brings in? Staff may be needed. Probably not if we only have one, but if for any reason we have 2 or 3 or it grows to 4, we currently don't have enough grant administration staff. I think Peyton's got all he can eat right now between the federal and state grants and everything else. Because right now, I don't know, is maybe not a third, 10% of our budget is grants, would you say? Yeah, pretty significant, but that's a lot of paperwork to manage 12 million a year. And then it's also recommended to DCA to make to make any kind of application successful. They like to see partnerships, not just with the private sector, but maybe reaching out to nonprofit groups like HFH or others, or if you're going to go into the loan financing, establishing relationships with lenders. And outside of that, development authorities can run the program too. So you could always say, pass, we don't want to run it through the county, but if the DABC, or if it were in the city, the DSDA or whoever, they're always welcome to do it too, but they've got to follow everything that's going on. So the big thing that I wanted to caution you on is before we do it, know that we need to have some kind of framework in place. Can we figure out that framework? Yes, there's no doubt about it. But we also have to create partnerships. We have to let potential applicants know that this is public and taxpayer money, and we're the ones going to be responsible for it. We're the ones who are going to have to pay the penalties if anything goes wrong. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying if you want to do it the right way. Any thoughts or questions? And I know I took a little longer than I thought, but I wanted to be thorough about what this is all about.
Let me ask you a question, because I simply do not know. I know here in the city of Statesboro, there's a lot of areas that people are living, that the land is being sold, and this is underprivileged, let me take that back. These are people that.
Are you asking, would it be a good tool for the city?
No.
Okay.
I guess this will be for the city and the county. If there are not affordable homes being built, where are these people going to live?
That's a valid question, and I think that's why we need the housing assessment that I spoke of. I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to speak with some of the staff at Georgia Tech, and I said, we don't need an old-fashioned, what I call the planner study. We need a market-based study. We need to know what the price points are. We need to have people involved in the development community, in the housing community, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit. You have to have players in the table. You can sit down with the census information and cook the numbers all the way you want. But if you're not engaging with stakeholders who can be out there and tell you, this is what I got to do to make a profit, or this is what I got to do to provide affordable housing, that's what's needed. And that's part of what I was talking about. If we're really, going to get into this in a meaningful way, or anybody else, any other city or organization in the county, I think we need to seriously consider the DCA stricture about forming legitimate partnerships. This, I will tell you, and this is where James needs to give me a little support, bro. Come on up. But but I can tell you that we looked closely at this program and at this money about a year ago, and we were actually thinking, is it going to help build the utility that we want to build in Southeast Bulloch? And DCA said flat out in a webinar, this money isn't for building pipe farms. We've got to get pipes and asphalt, within a development to people from what you already have. So I think what I'm saying is that the most important thing we or y'all as commissioners have to do is avoid walking into a moral hazard where you will be responsible for paying back state funds if something goes wrong. So we just need to think about how we're going to put this together, and I'll defer to James for any other comments if he likes.
Excuse me. No, I would just share that, the housing situation in the county as we're moving through some of the comprehensive plan items, as Commissioner Simmons knows, being in those meetings, future participation in the GIC program would certainly benefit, but I think this gets us, gets the thought out there that the market-based study would certainly help. And then if, there's different avenues you can go with trying to get affordable housing in the community, but it is definitely worth, considering if at all, we can make it work for us in the fact that maybe you make it competitive, similar to how GIC makes their process competitive, and you choose the developer to back when you let them make a presentation to you, and if you're comfortable with their project, then maybe that's one you move forward with and have one or two at a time. But our occupancy rate for homeownership, we're all houses according to the census are full. The rental rates are very low, meaning that the rental occupancy rates are low. So the cost of rental housing is going to continue to go up. So we've got to find some kind of help to get our future population or existing population into something they can afford. So.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, not a question, but I just like to say, first of all, to County Manager, appreciate the presentation. Had a chance, I see Marcus sitting back in the audience this morning with the scarf on, beautifully done. Had the opportunity to attend Habitat on the Hill, and I'm very grateful that I had a chance to go and represent Bulloch County and be a part of that, because I certainly understand much better this morning the presentation than had I not. And Marcus has spent a lot of time bringing me up and getting me to understand some of the programs. So I do feel like it's something we have to take a look at very carefully. And the one thing that I can say as minority commissioner, because I've had lots of conversations over the last several weeks, and I'm sure Commissioner Simmons has as well, is with some of the property being bought up, and if we don't do something, we have a great possibility of having a lot more homeless people in the community. And I think we have a very progressive community. And we all talk about how great it is to live in Bulloch County. We have an opportunity to get ahead of this before that problem, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see where some of it's headed if we don't do something. So that's all I would say. That, like I said, I personally appreciate the information. I think we need to have some conversations.
And I will say this, because I know we've been contacted, by different kinds of private developers, whether at a local or national scale. And again, all I'm saying is we have to be realistic and manage expectations, because I'm not going to tell you if we get 3 infrastructure grant applications in a particular cycle, or maybe 2 cycles, that we're going to get them all. But what I am saying is that when we put an application out, we want to win it. And I think we want to win it every time. But we do have a real, opportunity, not only countywide, the city of Statesboro, this is such an opportunity for them, in my opinion, because they had a robust housing study done 3 years ago. If you ever wanted to read it, that's what we need, and that's what we need to get eventually from Georgia Tech. But we want to win every time we go out the door with the Rural Workforce Housing Initiative grant application. And that's what I'm trying to elucidate.
Mr. Chairman, I will agree with Commissioner Mosley. There is a great need for housing in this community. And I must commend Tom in his grant writing and his picking of people who help us with grant writing. I'm kind of in the business of rentals, and I can get, I get people all the time looking for someplace to stay, and it's not, I can have 10 to 20 people call me every day looking for somewhere to stay, and we really do need the study done, and I think with listening to this and knowing Tom and his expert as a grant writer himself, and finding individuals to help us with grant writing, I have all the confidence in him that he will be able to, and James will be able to pull us through this, and we can get ahead of it and not have the and if you ride through Statesboro, and you can see a little bit better in Statesboro than out in the county. That you can see some people who don't have anywhere to stay right now. Not as bad as in the bigger cities, but we will continue to grow, and we will need places for individuals to stay at a lower cost.
I guess my question would be this: if there's any, I'm not talking about national builders,
Right.
local builders that might be looking at this, if they could come make a 15-minute presentation so we could better understand.
Sure. And we don't want to turn anybody away from the opportunity.
Right.
We just want to prevent or minimize the moral hazard effect.
Because speaking for myself, and I think I might be speaking for these other gentlemen up here, we need more facts,
Yes. Yeah.
and we need to see how it works. But I guess the biggest concern is people having somewhere to live that can afford something. They can't afford a $450,000 house. But, I mean, would y'all like for that to happen if they can get a builder to come make a presentation just to show us what the X's and O's are about. Maybe if we could schedule that for our next meeting,
Yes, sir.
if there's somebody out there that would do it, I think it would help us.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next on our agenda is public comments, and at this time, we have one signed up to speak, two. Okay, we have two signed up to speak, so you will have 5 minutes to speak each.
Ms. Leisha Neville,
She is unable to attend.
Okay,
Her
so Ms.
granddaughter
All
is
right.
being born today.
so Ms. Cassandra Michael.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Cassandra Michael, as Miss Mincy White said. Splash in the Borough. As part of your consent agenda today, there was approval to hire a marketing company for $23,000 to increase attendance. My assumption is that you seek to recoup some of the annual $1 million deficit incurred by Splash that taxpayers are footing the bill on. From my experience working at an amusement park for many, many, many years, one way to increase attendance is to cater to citizens and families local here to Bulloch County. Mr. Thompson has asked for input numerous times, so here is mine. Let the park be open from 10 to 8 p.m. every single day, not just Thursdays and Saturdays. On the weekends, the park should be open even later. This allows families to take their children after work, think 4 to 8 p.m., as opposed to y'all closing at 6 p.m. None of the working class families are going to Splash after work. While at the park, they will eat dinner, money in the bank for us, and have fun spending money in Bulloch County. The season should also be extended. My former employer stayed open daily for a solid month longer, 505 miles north of here. Another prominent part of the business structure that needs some attention is how guests view the park. Upon first entrance to the park, employees are on their cell phones, ignoring guests walking up. I have numerous pictures and many mom friends that will attest to this fact. Also, make sure our taxpayer-funded park is always clean. It's disgusting on some days. Many days, the trash cans are overflowing with bees hovering near them because they are never cleaned. Life jackets and other items are strewn about with little attention to cleaning them up. It just isn't a good look. I have pictures from all of this from last year. I have so many other suggestions, but based on my years of working for a well-run, profitable amusement park, but since I only have 5 minutes and most public comments seem to fall on deaf ears, I will move on to my next point. Impact fees. I've been asked by various citizens to speak about impact fees. It's time for the county commission to protect the property tax owners by collecting impact fees when a building permit is issued. With all the growth that you are trying to bring into our county, despite many telling you to slow down the growth that we don't want, at least do it the proper way financially. Many new developments are coming, and that could help fund or pay for the expansion of capital improvements and the necessary schools that are so obviously needed. If you don't implement impact fees, I feel that you will eventually bankrupt the whole county. Your current method of governing is not working. Changes need to be made, and it starts with all of you. Thank you.
So, thank you, Ms. Michael. We'll move now into staff comments. Any staff have any comments they'd like to make this morning? Commissioner comments? Any commissioners have any comments? Before I read this next part of our agenda here about executive session, I want to remind everybody of something. We had an incident that occurred last meeting that we had 3 people in here that would not leave or did not leave. We had one that I addressed after calling the executive session to order twice. Finally left. another one that we almost, well, we had to attempt to escort out of here. And then another one come walking in the door during executive session and attempted to take a seat. Executive session is for us to discuss issues that we have to discuss in private. So what I'm going to do this morning, after I read and call the executive session, we will give 2 minutes for everyone to clear this room. And so we can go on about our business. After executive session, those doors will open. If you would like to come back in and hear if we have any additional business, which we will not today, you're certainly welcome to come back in when those doors are open. So that's what we're going to have to do, because I'm not going to delay executive session for people to stay here and ask questions and things like that. You can bring your questions to the next meeting or come up here and see us. We'll be glad to answer questions. So having said that, I'm going to read this. I must now call for a motion to adjourn into executive session in accordance with the provisions of OCGA 5014-3, OCGA 5014-3B1D, and other applicable laws pursuant to the advice of County Attorney Jeff Akins for the purpose of discussing personnel and real estate. Do I have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion, a second discussion. All those in favor, show of hands. We are now in executive session, and thank you again for coming. Well, we fixing to.
You got a minute? 56 seconds.